Before I begin my story, I must maintain that my sentence to death was a wrong and vile thing to do. I maintain that I am not a killer. I did not kill the school children the authorities decided to hang me for. My sentence to death, I must maintain, is a huge misunderstanding. There must be forces out there against me who conspired to put me in prison for this very experiment, this accursed expedition. I am not deranged. I am not insane. The man in the odd multicoloured sweater paid me a visit a week before my scheduled execution date. "You are the former schoolteacher, Chetadami?" he asked, polite, offering me a plastic cup of coffee. I nodded, taking a sip. "I didn't kill those kids," I reiterated, for about the 1000th time. "Are you the, priest guy that comes before—" He shook his head and waved away the guards. "My name is Canopy Hydrangea," he introduced, extending a hand. I shook it. "I understand you may not be guilty, despite what the state believes." I nodded. "Finally, someone who—" He cut me off. "I'm not interested in your story. Whether you die or not is of no consequence to the people I represent," he continued. "But I am here to offer you a deal. There's a place the people I represent need exploring, and I need volunteers." He produced a sheet of paper and a pen. "This agreement," he clasped it into my hands, "has you join a team of expendable, volunteers such as yourself in this expedition. You get in, get the things we need, and get out, and you're free for life." This was better than dying in prison. I asked him what place this was that I'd be sent to. He told me I had to sign the form first. "I'll do it then," I cheered, signing the document. He smiled and patted me on the shoulder. "We'll even give you a whole new identity," he offered, and with that he seized the document away from me and left the building. Within hours I was blindfolded, sedated and transported. When I awoke, I was strapped to a bed in a helicopter with 4 others beside me, all beginning to wake up. The man who'd offered me the deal was there too, sucking on a lollipop while rearranging documents and photographs. These images, I assumed, was the place they wanted us to explore. They were mostly all aerial photos, a sea of endless green and an occasional bird. And yet, there was more. Images of impossible landscapes, dreamlike beings. "Ah, you guys are awake!" He clapped once and walked over. The next few moments were a flash as he re-injected us with some sort of blue, wriggling substance. It was cold, and I swear it pulsed inside my arm. Then we had landed, and the group was quickly taken inside a compound. We were freed and sat down in some sort of meeting room. More people were inside. A blue-haired lady joined the man. "Welcome, volunteers," he announced, pointing to a projector. "You are all, save for one, prisoners on death row," he reminded. "This offer today is simple. You enter the forest, travel to an outpost we have recently lost contact with." He turned on the projector, displayed a bright red cylinder labelled System Recorder A32, "and recover this data module." The woman spoke next. "Easy, right?" she countered us. "We'll provide maps." She gestured to the tablets. "But this forest is different." They proceeded to explain the reason they need volunteers for the assignment then. We were on an island somewhere in the Java Sea. The island had a massive forest in the centre, one that at first glance seemed as normal as ever. This changed when an international mining company sent in a team of geologists to determine if there was anything of note beyond the forest. This team never returned. Nor did a second team, armed with weapons, or an environmentalist group that ventured in to document new species. So then, the organisation our recruiters had come from entered the forest. We were on the outskirts of the forest, at a place they were calling Ache Base. Over the past month, they had begun to map the forests and determine why so many hadn't returned. The reason was illogical. The forest was bigger than the island itself. Drones that ventured in should have come out on the other side, yet remained inside the forest, encountering bizarre phenomena and creatures undocumented. Every so often, the forest would slope downwards, revealing a new layer with new and distinct ecosystems. "Recently, though," Canopy concluded, "we've lost contact with several outposts in the 3rd layer to 8th layers." He changed the slide to one of the lost outposts, standing alone amidst a vibrant alien forest. "You enter the forest, Get to your team's assigned outpost, get back out with the data, and you'll be set for life. Does anyone choose to rescind their agreement? The woman asked. It's either death or this, and frankly, your chances here aren't that better. There were some who raised their hands. Hell no, a man shouted. I'm going back to life. The woman had them taken away. We heard gunfire outdoors. No life row for him. Whoever they were serious about this. They started to call out names and assign teams. My team was small, 4 of us. There was a mercenary named Leo, who kept talking about the food the organisation had brought us. He seemed pleasant, charismatic, and I almost forgot he was a criminal. There was a scientist called Anya who, as she joked, was serving infinite life sentences for crimes against humanity. She was given the codes and a booklet of things to watch out for in what they called the Sea of Green. Then there was Gale. She was quieter than the 3 of us, and had an almost eerie vibe to her. She didn't tell us what she'd done to get here, but she was there nonetheless. Thankfully, we were given the closest and safest outpost, a little place in Layer 3, marked by the map as only a few hours' walk away. We set off the next day. The forest, in the beginning, seemed to almost invite us in. The birds chirped and danced, unafraid of mankind. We even fed them the nuts we'd been given as breakfast rations, which they seemed to enjoy. About an hour in, things changed. The light from the sun barely pierced the canopy, and at times we had to utilise our flashlights to see what was in front of us. Leo took the lead, hacking away at the branch and vine in front of us. The forest was starting to look like a jungle, and yet, as we traversed, it never seemed to choose which one it wanted to be. Wait! Anya hissed, as we crossed a stream that looked oddly familiar. She read from the booklet, then to the map on the tablets we'd been given. We've made a circle! Leo shook his head. That's impossible, he insisted. I don't remember turning. Yeah, I agreed, catching up from behind. Anya shared the booklet. It's one of the first phenomena researchers encounter, she explained. This place plays tricks on us. We need to follow the stream. But then, Gale pointed out, we'd be going in the wrong direction. Trust the book, Anya concluded. We followed the stream then, and the path started to grow denser, as if the forest hated us for travelling further. But the path was right, and the forest changed as we journeyed. An hour later, the forest had changed. It had sloped downwards a bit, inviting us to the second layer of the maze. The trees seemed higher, and the light was now gone completely. This was when we started to hear it. Click, click. What was that? I asked, turning. Click, click. Anya rushed through the book. It's not documented. Click, click. And then we saw lights in the distance. Lights that, as we continued walking, were revealed to us as bulbous fruit on the trees that glowed an eerie electric blue. Click, click. You sure it's not in that book? Leo questioned, switching his machete out for a gun. Click, click. The clicks were getting louder, each one sending a jolt of uneasy fear down my spine. We moved closer together now, fearing the unknown that were in these. A bush in front of us rustled. Leo aimed his weapon. A deer. No, something like a deer popped out, gently squawking. It was wrong in every sense, but it seemed more occupied in chewing a flower than us. The small creature had the antlers of a deer, yes, but it also had the face of an old man, not to mention 6 fists full of thumbs at the end of its legs. It inspected a glowing fruit with its odd thumbs. Ew, Gale commented, disgusted. What the hell is that? Anya didn't have time to look for answers before a black insectine limb shot out of one of the bulbous fruits and impaled the deer thing. It screamed an all-too-human scream and struggled. We backed away, and by then, the noise was overwhelming. Click, 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 click. They erupted from every single one of the bulbous fruits, and things began to pour out of them. The limbs, see, were attached to a head, a simple sphere that opened into buzzsaws of teeth that grotesquely clicked as they opened. The face deer only screamed as the clicking creatures devoured it. Run, Leo reminded, shooting as some started to near us. "Run!" They shook us out, and we ran, terror in our very veins. They seemed more interested in the fallen deer than us, but we still ran, until we could no longer. Actually, it was until I fell off and entered the third layer. A weight appeared on my chest as I fought it off, thinking I was about to die, but the soft, furry creature atop of me jumped off. It wasn't one of those clicking monsters. And then I realised the third layer was bright. The trees themselves were glowing now, not the insect fruits of before, and there were a whole host of new bizarre creatures. The thing I'd pushed off was some sort of rabbit, covered in glowing blue stripes. If layer 2 had been a forest of darkness, this was its very opposite. In the skies there were ribbons of glowing creatures, thin kites of an unseen wind. The trees were alive with all sorts of furry friends, darting here and there and eating odd-coloured berries that didn't seem real. Anya pointed and spoke. "Look!" It was the outpost, in ruins. "But what attacked it?" Gail murmured as we walked over. We entered through a hole in the wall. The place was oddly peaceful, calming, now home to bioluminescent little ants that dotted the place. Occasionally, one or two of the face deer would appear, licking the dots up with twin tongues that emerged from its all-too-human face. "Cute," Leo joked, picking one up and stroking it. It screamed back at him, chilling, and he dropped it. "Never doing that again." The place was too peaceful, and what happened to their bodies? I posited. If they were attacked, where's their blood? Their corpses? Anya shrugged. "It is odd. Perhaps they got devoured." She gestured to the many oddities around us. "But you're right. There should be bones at least." This was when we heard the screaming, and all of a sudden, every single creature retreated away, disappearing from view, save for the tiny ants inside with us. The screaming was a cacophony of voices, realer than the ones we'd heard from the face deer. "I think we need to go," Leo whispered, holding out the red data module in his hands. "Now!" The screaming got ever closer, and the trees in front of the outpost, beyond a window, started to shake. I concur. We were backing away when we heard the squelching of something loud and heavy. Turning around, we saw the screaming creature we'd heard. It was massive, fleshy, and filled with tiny gaping holes, some filled with eyes, all rising, breathing as one. I nearly threw up, but that was for a different reason. The holes were one thing, but the screaming, severed bodies of dozens of people attached to the eyeful monster was another. They screamed and screamed, their bodies unneatly joined and sewn into the creature. It sniffed the air and walked over to the glass, looking in as we hid. "What is it?" I squealed. "What the hell is that?" The face of a victim in military clothes appeared at the window, screaming, face slowly popping, skin repairing and being digested all at once. Anya flicked through the pages. "They call it a flesh weave. It absorbs bodies and eats them that way." That would explain the lack of bodies we'd seen. The window shattered, and the thing began to force itself on it, flesh turning to churn cylinders through the window. The bodies, crushed farther, screamed some more. So we ran as the beasts fell into the room with a plop, and despite its heavy, gluttonous form, it charged forwards, faster than it looked. Out the outpost we went. I felt a meaty hand hit me, and then I fell. It stalked towards me, but a gunshot from Leo burst its pus-ridden hand, covered in grotesque, viscous liquid. I picked myself up and ran from the screaming thing, up the steep slope and climbing onto the second layer. I fell again, but Anya caught me, helping me up. Leo did the same for Gale, but she slipped and fell back into the third layer. The thing approached her, all of its pulsing eyes upon her. "Help me!" she bellowed. "Don't leave me!" Leo prepared to jump down, but it was too late. The flesh weave simply picked her up, and it opened its skin, forging her into her body, her top half. It severed the rest. "Go!" I snapped, dragging the mercenary into action. The creature behind us lifted itself onto the dark forest and continued to follow. Gale, merged with the other unfortunate bodies, screamed. I almost stopped in terror from the sound, but flight or fight forced me to continue. Click, click. We found ourselves back in the centre of the abode with the insect fruit, and the insects were clearly attracted to the stench of decay the monster emanated. Limbs emerged, and the face beetles jumped up and swarmed the creatures. I don't know if the creature was killed by it. I only remember Gale's face as the insects started to pick her body, and so many others like her, apart. The way out seemed harder than going in, but we made it. We survived. We reached the outpost and handed our data module to the man who'd offered us the deal. Impressive, he congratulated. You're the first team back. I want out now, I panted. Back to real life. He patted me on the shoulder and gave me a sad smile. According to the world, you've already died by suicide in your cell, he informed. See, there's a way the people I work for have operated so cleanly for the past few centuries. He paused and took a step back. We can't afford loose ends, see? And you've shown us you have the guts to survive Bandai, the Sea of Green. I took a step back, panicking. What do you mean? He sighed. We can't give you a new life and risk exposing our operation here, he explained. And we still need, expendable people to lead us to whatever's in the centre of the island. He handed me a can of soda. Welcome to your new life. The company really values your dedication as a treasured employee. But I don't want this. I was promised freedom, and they can't keep me from exposing them. I've typed this up, and Anya did something to the tablet so that I can receive and post things online. I'm not sure if this'll work, but if it is, I'm on an island somewhere in the Java Sea. There's a forest that goes on forever, and I'm being held by some sort of explorer, by some company. Find me before I die.